All right, these are some projects I thought were absolutely banger. They came out of my Discord server, and I wanted to talk about why these projects are good, specifically for people who, I don't know, want to get hired or just want to do something reasonable and aren't inspired. So this first one this one's kind of unachievable by normal humans, to be honest, but it's really cool. Formal proof of the Riemann hypothesis for curves. So this guy used Lean, which is like a newer version of Prolog. It's a theorem prover. And this language is going to become, my prediction, this is going to be like the language to know in a few years, because, I don't know, the LLMs are getting really good at doing React and Python full stack apps, and even other languages too that are a little more in the periphery, but Lean is like, the training set is so small still. They can figure it out with really good documentation as our like retrieval augmented code generation gets better and our agents get better, but Lean is basically like math as a programming language. Well, it's like a proof verifier. But this project is like formal Lean proof of Riemann hypothesis for hyperelliptic curves over finite fields. So that's kind of the equivalent of like, that's a huge problem, but it's like we solved it for a smaller, it's like, well, we solved starvation in a group of 20 people. Global hunger is solved, but only in one small town. And you can see this generates, maybe this is like a tech kind of thing, which is really unfortunate. They haven't figured out types yet. They'll be mind blown when they figure that out, but they've generated like a dependency chart of all the theorems that stack up to proving this, which is just a really cool project. And this is like one of the things that's, I guess, a lot less software engineering and more like just sitting and thinking for a long time and like, how does this fit together? But yeah, this is just a really awesome project. Really cool to see some Lean. I'm going to probably pursue Lean after my classes, like this summer. It seems like a really good thing to pursue. Also, like, you may say, oh, this is just like theoretical mathy stuff, but it is used in some very specific software engineering use cases when you have to be very sure about your code. And there's this whole thing called it's like the Howard Curry correspondence, where we now know that proofs and programs there's like a bijection between them. They're isomorphic, I guess. And I know some people that for very high level programming projects, high level not as in like far from metal, but as in like very, very complicated, important projects, they'll use Lean to formally verify certain conditions about them. I think Prolog was used for that. Then this project I really liked because I've done something very similar. So this is just Rust bindings for Network Manager, which is like a Linux utility. And I did something kind of similar. Let's see, go up, go to my profile. I did something for, albeit it's a lot less popular, launch control, which is just the macOS system, or macOS like background service, like daemon controller thing. This is such a shitty project. It's so badly done. I did this years ago. I barely knew what I was doing, and I was just spamming Rust to get them GitHub stars. But this guy, actually, you can see based on like the commit messages and stuff, this is, and the amount of contributors, and he's got formatting bots and whatnot in there. It looks like an action bots, and it auto deploys to cargo and whatnot. But this is a great thing to do if you want to make a binding library in a different language, probably some kind of systems language, Zig or Rust, or I don't know, Go sometimes. Depends on what language you like. If you want to make a binding library for like an operating system level utility, that's a great thing to do because it's very scoped. Like you won't, there's not a lot more than you can do than just like, okay, we've covered every single piece of functionality that launch control possibly offers. It's not a huge project, but it teaches you a lot of great software engineering practices. And also you'll become, if you do this correctly and your project is good and well thought out, you'll become a dependency in the chain of dependencies in other people's projects, which is really awesome because now you have some accountability, and you can, if you want to go and employment max, you can go and show the employers like, look, I'm a link in the chain of actual production software. I made this library. It's high quality. People are actually using it. I think that's really cool. And as simple as this is just like basically a wrapper around some shell commands, I would guess. Well, I don't know. Maybe he taps into the ABI or something a little bit. Maybe it's the link is stronger, but you have to write a bunch of docs around this. You have to design. There's like a bunch of design patterns that actually go into this. This is networking. It's even more complicated for me. I was just basically creating XML files and then having like a builder class for them, builder struct. I don't even remember what I did in that project, but it was not good. So yeah, this is just a great project, and there's plenty more random utilities on Unix you can decide to wrap, plus on other operating systems too. This is a big project space. It's like I think it's a great beginner project or beginner to intermediate project. I don't know. Go give all of these a star. All right, next up, this guy. This has like no stars yet. This is just a guy in my Discord, but I thought this project was really cool. It's basically just a Lisp web framework, and you can define HTML tags and Tailwind classes. But like building a full-on web project, like using a language that's not really intended for it, is awesome. This is like when people make their own programming languages, and yeah, they're janky. They're never really going to be used in production because it's just like a weird idea. But hey, this guy loves. This is like a real, actually good programmer when you see some like really freaky ass programming language. Let me see if I can get a better view of some of the Lisp. I don't know where like the bulk of it is living. Build.lisp, route.lisp. Okay, looks like it's kind of... There's some more Lisp. I don't exactly know. Tags.lisp? Okay, yeah. I don't know. Looks like it's a somewhat small project, but like a lot of thinking went into this. Oh shit, yeah. This is just a great indication when it's like kind of a funky language you would never see in another application. Someone just like throws this together. So if you're a Lisp guy, you should pull up and contribute to this project. I would hire this guy. I would hire this over like a more impressive React project these days. And it's just clear this is all written by hand. It is kind of weird that that's becoming our criteria because LLMs are getting more capable, but I don't know. I want to see someone who... It's not so much, right, about like what you can do, because the LLMs are better than me at writing React now. Like, I don't know all their weird TypeScript objects that well. And they, for the most part, unless I like really practiced my React and TypeScript skills all the time, then they're still beating me out. But it's like when you're hiring someone, you want to see that they kind of do this for fun and they learn for fun, because that's like the big bottleneck. If you just like use an LLM to get the job done and you don't really care, you're gonna stagnate as a developer and not be helpful at all in the long run. Whereas maybe you can't even use React that well at all, but you're doing something like this, then it's like, okay, this guy will adapt to this environment and thrive. All right, and then this one, local industry, is a project that's quite similar to something I did a long time ago. Give this a star. And it's basically just like an OpenGL game engine. There's maybe a couple screenshots I can show of this. Let's see. OpenGL game engine. Yeah, here's some screenshots of it. So this is like ugly as fuck, obviously. Like, god damn, that looks bad. But I'm saying that with love because I made something that looks exactly, well, worse than this, actually. And it had less functionality. What this is, though, is just an OpenGL GLSL game engine. There's even a little bit of Lua in there. That's interesting. Maybe he has some embedded scripting or something for designing levels. He went further than me, or they did. I'm not sure the gender of this individual, but there's a Z config in there too. The reason this is such a good project, anyone who's ever tried to make anything in OpenGL knows that it's like an absolute headache to even get like a triangle rendering and to get your basic like rendering pipeline. There's like 10 steps to it. You have to know linear algebra pretty well, or at least just kind of dismiss that part of it. But there's a lot of camera math that goes into transforming like 3D world coordinates into 2D screen space coordinates, and then there's all the the depth you have to deal with, and there's a bunch of transformation there, and then there's a bunch of like low-level buffers you have to deal with passing batches of pixel information to, and then like you draw your triangle and triangles and chunks. So I just made like a really basic 3D engine. It was less than this, also looked horrible, but the amount that taught me about C++ and graphics programming in general is just phenomenal. And I got kind of like, I made the mistake of building this 3D model loader for .obj files, and then after that was finished, my Greek roommate and I like just were like talking about all the potential possibilities of this, because once you do this, you're like, holy shit, I have such fine-grained control of everything. If you've built up your whole 3D model loader from the ground up, like in this finite amount of detail, you feel like you can do anything with it because you just have so much control. Like if there's no game engine coupled to it at all. And then we were like, we're going to do this and this and this and this, and we're going to make this a full game. And then like we just got burnt out on it because we spent too much time thinking about the possibilities. And it is quite slow to develop just games outside of an engine. You have to roll everything yourself. And C++ and like CMake and stuff is a little clunky, but you're going to learn so much making a 3D rendering engine in OpenGL. Like it's unreal. And this is also just a great project for hiring, because it's like this person can drag themselves through any amount of inconvenience. This is like seriously a very difficult project to pull off. Even if it doesn't look like super aesthetic or amazing, it's like, holy shit, that I know from personal experience that took a lot of time. And yeah, same, just anything with OpenGL that you've done yourself in C++ is like, shit, that's a brutal amount of work you put in to make that happen. I don't know how LLMs really affect that. I didn't use any when I made this thing. But yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna ideally do this every once in a while. Just if you're in my Discord, post more projects if you want to get them reviewed. If you're not, I'll continue to roll out invitations slowly, but this is a long game thing, right? Don't worry that you're like missing out on immediate action, because if you stick around, you will get into the Discord. And long-term games with long-term people, we're all gonna get rich here, not just the people in the Discord, although they will get more rich.